The morning sun cast a warm, golden hue across Riverside's Main Street as I stood at the intersection of Oak and Maple, clipboard in hand, watching the final preparations for our annual Heritage Days parade unfold before me. 23 years. I'd been organizing this event, and at 47, I could orchestrate it with my eyes closed. Every float position, every marching band formation, every safety barrier, all of it existed in perfect harmony in my mind, like a well-rehearsed symphony. Chief Morrison, the Roosevelt High Marching Band, is asking about their start time again, called Jenny, my assistant coordinator, jogging up with her radio crackling with chatter from volunteers stationed throughout the route. Tell them 15 minutes, same as I told them yesterday during rehearsal, I replied, adjusting my official Heritage Days polo shirt and scanning the crowd that was beginning to gather along the sidewalks. Families with lawn chairs, children clutching small American flags, elderly couples sharing thermoses of coffee. This was what made all the months of planning worthwhile. The parade route stretched for exactly 1.2 miles through the heart of our small town, beginning at the old courthouse and ending at Riverside Park, where we'd have the traditional barbecue and live music. I'd walked this route so many times in preparation that I knew every crack in the sidewalk, every overhanging tree branch that might catch a flag or banner. Mrs. Morrison! A familiar voice caught my attention, and I turned to see Emma Rodriguez wheeling toward me in her custom purple wheelchair, her face beaming with excitement. At 14, Emma had more enthusiasm and spirit than most adults I knew. Born with spina bifida, she'd never let her disability define her limitations. Instead, she seemed to find ways to exceed everyone's expectations. Emma, are you ready for your big moment? I asked, crouching down to her eye level. This year, Emma had been selected as our youth grand marshal, chosen from dozens of applicants for her volunteer work at the animal shelter and her fundraising efforts for the children's hospital. She'd raised over $3,000 by selling her handmade friendship bracelets, and the local newspaper had featured her story just last week. I've been ready for weeks, she laughed, her dark eyes sparkling. My mom helped me decorate my chair with streamers and flowers. I even have a special shirt that matches the parade theme. She gestured to her bright yellow t-shirt that read, Riverside Strong, in bold letters, bedazzled with tiny rhinestones that caught the morning light. Emma's mother, Maria, approached with a gentle smile, carrying a small cooler and a canvas bag filled with what looked like more decorative materials. She's been talking about nothing else for days, Maria said warmly. Thank you again for choosing her. This means the world to our family. I felt that familiar warmth in my chest that came with seeing community members celebrate each other. This was exactly why I dedicated so much of my life to organizing events like this, to create moments where people could come together, where a young girl like Emma could feel celebrated and valued by her entire town. Emma earned this honor, I said firmly. She's shown more leadership and community spirit than most people twice her age. The sound of approaching sirens indicated that the police escort was getting into position. Officer Patricia Williams, our head of parade security, gave me a thumbs up from her position at the front of the route. Everything was falling into place with the precision of a Swiss watch. All right, Emma, let's get you to your position, I said, checking my watch. You'll be right behind the color guard and just ahead of the Roosevelt Marching Band. As we made our way toward the staging area, I couldn't help but notice how Emma waved to everyone she passed. Volunteers, other participants, early arriving spectators, she greeted them all with genuine warmth. Several people stopped to wish her luck or compliment her decorated wheelchair, which she'd transformed into a rolling garden of artificial sunflowers and yellow ribbons. The staging area buzzed with controlled chaos. The Riverside Veterans of Foreign Wars Post was adjusting their matching jackets and polishing their medals. The local dance studio had their tiny ballerinas in tutus lined up like a row of colorful flowers. The high school football team was stretching and joking around, their Letterman jackets gleaming in the morning sun. Emma Rodriguez, our youth grand marshal, I announced as we approached her designated spot, and a small cheer went up from the nearby participants. I watched with pride as she was welcomed with applause and encouraging words from people who might not have known her name before today, but clearly recognized her spirit. Chief Morrison, came another radio call. We've got a minor issue with the Kiwanis Club float. Their speaker system isn't working. On my way, I responded, giving Emma one final encouraging smile. You're going to do great. Remember, just be yourself and enjoy every second. As I hurried toward the Kiwanis float, I reflected on how smoothly things were progressing. In my 23 years of experience, I'd learned that the key to a successful, parade wasn't just in the planning, though that was crucial, but in fostering the right atmosphere. When participants felt valued and spectators felt welcomed, magic happened naturally. The float issue turned out to be a simple loose wire, easily fixed by our volunteer electrician, Bob Henderson, who seemed to appear whenever technical problems arose, like some kind of small-town superhero with a tool belt. 30 minutes to start time, I announced through my megaphone, and the energy level noticeably increased. Final adjustments were made to costumes, instruments were tuned, and the excited chatter of participants mixed with the growing crowd noise from the spectators lining the street. I made my way back toward the front of the parade, conducting my final walkthrough. The color guard looked sharp in their crisp uniforms, flags perfectly aligned. The mayor's classic convertible was polished to a mirror shine. The antique fire truck from the volunteer fire department was gleaming red and chrome, its vintage bell ready to add its distinctive sound to the parade's soundtrack. And there was Emma, radiant in her spot of honor, chatting animatedly with the veterans marching behind her. I could see her gesturing excitedly, probably telling them about her fundraising efforts or asking about their service. Her natural ability to connect with people of all ages never ceased to amaze me. Everything looks perfect, Chief, said Tom. Bradley, our head volunteer coordinator, appearing at my elbow with his own clipboard and radio. Weather's holding, crowds building nicely, and everyone seems ready to go. Let's make this the best Heritage Days parade yet, I replied, feeling that familiar pre-parade excitement building in my chest. After all these years, I still got butterflies before the start. It was the same feeling I'd had as a kid waiting for the school play to begin, or as a young adult before my wedding day. Anticipation mixed with pride and just a touch of nervous energy. 15 minutes, I called out, and watched as the final preparations intensified. This was always my favorite moment, right before the parade began, when all the planning and preparation converged into a single point of potential energy, ready to transform into something beautiful and memorable for our entire community. Little did I know that in just a few minutes that careful planning and positive energy would be tested in a way I'd never experienced before, and Emma's moment of triumph would nearly be destroyed by someone who seemed to have forgotten what community spirit actually meant. The parade had been rolling for exactly 12 minutes when I heard the commotion. I was positioned at the halfway point, watching the Roosevelt High Marching Band execute a flawless rendition of America the Beautiful, when the sharp sound of raised voices cut through the musical harmony like a knife through silk. Get out of the way! You're blocking everyone's view! The voice was shrill, aggressive, and completely out of place in the joyful atmosphere we'd cultivated. I turned toward the source of the disturbance and felt my blood run cold. There, about 50 feet ahead of me, a woman in an expensive-looking white pantsuit was standing directly in front of Emma's wheelchair, gesticulating wildly and clearly berating our youth Grand Marshal. The woman appeared to be in her early 50s, with perfectly styled blonde hair and oversized sunglasses that probably cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget. Emma had stopped moving forward, and I could see even from this distance that her usual bright smile had vanished, replaced by a look of confusion and hurt that made my chest tighten with protective fury. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I'm part of the parade," I heard Emma say, her voice carrying that particular tone children use when they're trying to be polite despite being upset. "I'm the youth Grand Marshal. I'm supposed to be here." "I don't care what you're supposed to be," the woman shot back, her voice rising to a volume that was causing other spectators to turn and stare. "My children paid good money for those seats." She gestured toward two folding chairs positioned on the sidewalk. "And they can't see anything with your contraption taking up the whole street." I was already moving, my parade coordinator instincts kicking into high gear, but the scene was unfolding faster than I could cover the distance. The woman, whom I was already mentally labeling as the textbook definition of an entitled Karen, seemed to be working herself into an even greater fury. "This is supposed to be a family event," she continued, her voice now loud enough that the marching band members were looking over their shoulders to see what was happening. Not some charity case parade. There are normal kids who should be getting this attention. The words hit me like a physical blow. In 23 years of organizing community events, I had never, not once, encountered such blatant cruelty directed at a child, especially one as remarkable as Emma. The woman's words weren't just inappropriate. They were devastating, designed to tear down everything Emma had worked for and accomplished. Emma's mother, Maria, who had been walking proudly alongside her daughter's wheelchair, stepped forward with fire in her eyes. "How dare you speak to my daughter that way? She earned her place in this parade through her community service and—" "Oh, please!" Karen interrupted, rolling her eyes dramatically. "Community service? What could she possibly do? She can't even walk. This is just political correctness gone mad, giving participation trophies to kids who don't deserve them." That was the moment something inside me snapped. I had reached them by now, and I could see Emma's face clearly. She was fighting. Back tears, her small hands gripping the armrests of her wheelchair so tightly her knuckles had gone white. The joy and pride that had been radiating from her just minutes earlier had been replaced by shame and hurt, and I felt a rage building in my chest that I hadn't experienced since my army days. But before I could intervene, the situation escalated, beyond anything I could have imagined. "You know what?" Karen said, her voice dripping with venom. "I'm going to do something about this myself." And with that, she reached out and grabbed the front of Emma's wheelchair, actually attempting to physically push her out of the parade route. The collective gasp from nearby spectators was audible even over the distant sound of the marching band. Several people started to move forward to help, but I was already there, my hand closing around Karen's wrist with the firm grip I'd learned during my military service. "Remove your hands from that child immediately," I said, my voice low but carrying the kind of authority that had once commanded respect from soldiers twice my size. "And step away from the parade route." Karen whirled around to face me, her face flushed with indignation. "Who do you think you are? You can't tell me what to do? I'm a taxpayer in this community, and I demand that this spectacle be removed from the parade right now." "Ma'am," I said, maintaining my grip on her wrist and fixing her with the steely gaze that had once made subordinates straighten their spines. "I'm going to tell you exactly who I am, and then you're going to apologize to this young lady and remove yourself from my event." "Your event?" She laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. "Listen, whoever you are, I don't think you understand how things work around here. My husband is a very important man in this town. He's the regional manager for the biggest insurance company in the county, and we know the mayor personally. One phone call from me, and you'll be—" "My name is Chief Sarah Morrison," I interrupted, my voice cutting through her threats like a blade. "I am the chief event coordinator for the entire Heritage Days celebration. I have organized this parade for the past 23 years. Those permits hanging from every street lamp, I secured them. Those police officers ensuring everyone's safety, I coordinated with them. Every single aspect of this event, from the staging area to the final cleanup, goes through me." I watched the color drain from Karen's face as the implications of what I was saying began to sink in. But I wasn't finished. "Furthermore," I continued, my voice growing stronger as I felt the protective instincts of not just an event organizer, but of a community leader and a human being with basic decency, "Emma Rodriguez is our youth grand marshal, selected through a competitive application process that included community service verification, academic achievement, and character references. She raised over $3,000 for the Children's Hospital by selling handmade bracelets. She volunteers at the animal shelter every weekend. She has shown more leadership and community spirit in her 14 years than you've demonstrated in the past 5 minutes." The crowd around us had grown, with spectators abandoning their spots along the parade route to witness this unprecedented confrontation. I could see phones being raised, undoubtedly recording the encounter, and I made a mental note to ensure that any footage would tell the complete story. Karen's mouth opened and closed several times, like a fish gasping for air. I didn't know. I mean, she shouldn't be what?" I asked, my voice rising now. "She shouldn't be celebrated for her achievements. She shouldn't be recognized for her contributions to our community? She shouldn't be treated with the basic respect and dignity that every human being deserves? I finally released Karen's wrist and took a step back, but my eyes never left her face. Here's what's going to happen next. You are going to apologize to Emma Rodriguez. A sincere, heartfelt apology for your inexcusable behavior. Then you are going to remove yourself from the parade route immediately. And if I see you anywhere near any of our participants for the remainder of this event, I will have you escorted off the premises by security. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the distant sounds of the marching band seemed muted, as if the entire town was holding its breath, waiting to see how this would resolve. Karen looked around at the crowd of faces staring at her, all of them reflecting varying degrees of disgust and disapproval. Her husband, I assumed it was her husband, had appeared from somewhere and was standing a few feet away, his face red with embarrassment. "Margaret," he said quietly, "apologize to the girl, now." Margaret, apparently that was her real name, looked back at Emma, who was still sitting in her wheelchair, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks despite her obvious efforts to hold them back. Margaret began, then stopped. For a moment, I thought she might actually find some shred of human decency buried beneath her entitlement and arrogance. Instead, she lifted her chin defiantly. "I'm not apologizing to anyone. This whole thing is ridiculous, and I'm going to file a complaint with the city council about how this event is being run. Come on, Robert, we're leaving." As she turned to walk away, something extraordinary happened. The crowd of spectators, people who had been strangers to each other just minutes before, began to clap. Slowly at first, then building to a thunderous applause directed not at Margaret's departure, but at Emma. "We love you, Emma," someone called out. "You're amazing," shouted another voice. "Youth Grand Marshal! Youth Grand Marshal!" The chant began with a few voices and quickly spread through the crowd until it seemed like half the town was celebrating Emma Rodriguez. I watched as Emma's face transformed, the hurt and confusion giving way to wonder and then to joy. Her mother was crying now too, but these were tears of happiness and pride. The other parade participants had stopped to see what was happening, and they joined in the applause and cheering. But the real surprise came when Emma raised her hand for quiet, and the crowd actually listened. "Thank you," she said, her voice surprisingly strong after everything that had just happened. "That lady, she was wrong about a lot of things, but she was right about one thing. This is a family event, and all of you just proved that Riverside really is one big family." The cheer that went up at that moment was louder than any I'd heard in 23 years of parades. As the parade resued,